I think that's it. I know that she cares about her grandson. I do. And I hope we can find a safe way to make that happen. But for me, as the party that was isolated, living with those two and trying to get him out of trouble, it's not safe for me mentally, emotionally. I can't do it.
Thank you, Ms. Maddox. All right. Well, before I make my ruling, I want to thank you both for being here and addressing what is clearly a very difficult situation. Apart from there's this prosecution happening with Michael, and this is just another court proceeding, and so I realize this is difficult for everybody. I am going to grant the order as requested by Ms. Maddox. The reason being is Ms. Mott, I understand what you've been saying about.
I am writing this today to address Kriana Mott's response to my request for an anti-harassment order. Kriana and I did have a good relationship as long as I was attempting to get Michael out of trouble. I won't deny that. I also won't deny that I struggled with sobriety after Michael started abusing me again. I have remained sober since he was arrested the second time in January because I no longer have to live in fear. I had been sober for just over a year when I relapsed on July 11th, 2025. That night, Michael chokeslammed me into the ground out of frustration and the abuse cycle began again. Kriana witnessed him do this, and instead of standing up for what is right, she gave me one of her Valiums so I calmed down from the pain and sleep. Kriana mentions my drinking several times, but fails to mention her own dependence to benzodiazepines and marijuana. Michael's last use of methamphetamines was in October 2025 when he abandoned my son and I without any money or food in the home for 3 days. He did this again in January, which is why I was so upset in the messages to Kriana. Michael had been unfaithful for the entirety of our relationship, exposing me to STDs throughout my pregnancy in which I had to receive treatment. And the messages were in reference to him choosing women over us again. He had done this many times prior. I was very upset and heartbroken because I was attempting to get him out of trouble for strangling me, yet he continued to seek out other women. I was also free to express my anger in text messages because I couldn't do so in person without the threat of being hurt. I expressed anger and hurt with words after years of abuse and control. Both her and Michael both have extensive assault convictions, whereas I have none. She put a woman in the hospital for talking poorly about her daughter and served time. I was very aware of her past violence and could only express myself via text messages. It was a nightmare situation, and I am truly grateful to be free. I just finished an intensive outpatient program and am continuing on my own healing journey with multiple forms of therapy. Kriana states I stayed away for 4 days in July. In actuality, I was kicked out of the house and not allowed to return. I was arrested on July 14th for an unpaid bar tab. This case has been dismissed because it was linked to Michael's financial abuse. I had money in our account, but he had taken all of it, once again leaving me homeless and without anything. This had occurred multiple times within our relationship, including me sleeping in my vehicle while 7 months pregnant for 2 days. When we were living off of my salary and then maternity pay, it was our money, but when he had money, it was his, strictly his. Thankfully, the state was able to see I was being financially abused as well as emotionally, mentally, sexually, and physically. Kriana states that someone else is caring for my son. I am my son's primary caregiver, and this can be verified by the individuals who are in court with me today. They watch him if I have appointments or meetings, but I am his safe place and support. I know without a doubt that the individual who was attempting to serve Kriana was at the right house and was able to describe Kriana's vehicle precisely. We verified over the phone and through pictures. Casey's statement seems to be a lie to assist Kriana, or she needs to have her security cameras checked for inaccuracy. Kriana's statement of events that allegedly occurred on January 4th, 2026 is completely falsified. If any of those things are true, Kriana would be able to supply a police report number, picture evidence, and domestic violence is taken very seriously in this state. I would have been arrested. More importantly, Kriana did not come over on January 4th. I did drink again the night of January 3rd when they had taken my son after 3 months of sobriety, which I admitted to in the text Kriana submitted. Michael would take him as a means of control and to trigger a response out of me. The conditions I was living in after the strangulation up until I was finally free of him are some of the darkest, most confusing times of my life. I did want to help get Michael out of trouble because I still cared about him. And he told me that I had to get him out of trouble or he'd take my son from me forever. I am now in therapy to help overcome battered woman syndrome. I never yelled at my son about his father or threw anything at Kriana. This is a perfect example why I am seeking protection from Kriana. She will say and do anything to make me seem like the aggressor. Kriana states she wishes me no harm, yet lies and makes outrageous accusations to support her and Michael's case. She was not over on the 4th of January at all and cannot supply any evidence of this allegation. I hope the court sees what she is attempting to do. I knew there would be retaliation for me seeking this order, but had no idea the depth she would go to create more issues. Also, there was no welfare check on January 4th and no record of this. If I were drunk and throwing things, why would they have left Bodie with me? Also, if this were true, why was she back at the house on the 7th with me? Nothing from this allegation makes sense, and she has no evidence besides her statement. She sent welfare checks out of retaliation after he was arrested on January 10th, in which I have provided the court with the sequence number to confirm this in my previous filing. I would also guess that if she did file a police report, that it was done after he was arrested, again, out of retaliation. The text messages on January 5th, where I stated I was embarrassed of my behavior, is in reference to me posting about Michael's abuse on Facebook and speaking so poorly about Michael via text to Kriana, which you can see me talking about as the messages progress. My child had been taken from me, I had relapsed and was seeking help so I could reestablish myself, which is why I wrote a statement asking him to sign. You can see the desperation in my statement of him not having Bodie around other women because that is what Michael was doing prior, taking him and exposing him to other women without my knowledge. I was also terrified he would remove him from Thurston County because his mother and him had made threats to hide him in Forks, Washington. The individual in court can also attest to these threats. I needed help and could not go get it due to their intentions and the fear of what would happen to my son. I initially sought this order to protect myself from harassment and pressure to not cooperate in the case against Michael. After seeing these allegations, I now feel it is more important than ever that this order be enforced. She is willing to use any form of abuse to save Michael's reputation and support his violence. The police reports demonstrate I was left with markings consistent with strangulation. There is CCTV evidence of him dragging me by my hair in the hallway and evidence of his severe alcohol use at Great Wolf Lodge the morning of the attack. I am fearful of what other allegations she will attempt as this case continues, and I do not believe she will be able to restrain herself. She supports and encourages Michael's violence. She told me many stories of the violence she endured by his father, and it is sad that she had to go through that, but that does not make it normal or acceptable. Kriana states she wants to restore peace, yet makes such extreme accusations and turns quickly if things are not being done the way she wants them. I would love for us to get to a place of peace eventually, but I do not believe that that can happen at this time. She wants to justify Michael's abuse, and the only way to do that is to make me look unstable and incapable of caring for my son. She also states she just wanted to see if Bodie needed anything, yet neither she nor Michael have provided any financial or essential needs for Bodie. I know for myself the hurt and pain caused by Michael was far too fresh and will take me years of therapy to undo the abuse I endured for so long. If she could refrain from trying to justify his actions, we could have a relationship, but her messages from February demonstrate that we are not there yet. And there was 2 or 3 other quick things I wanted to point out, if that was okay.
Sure.
In the text with the Amber individual, when she was addressing something about the CPS situation or possibly calling CPS, that was not what was relayed to me, and those individuals are in court with me today. But you can see where she's talking about I'm going to get picked up that day. After Michael was arrested the first time, she was doing everything to get me arrested. Anything and everything. She also conveniently cut out me talking about the fear that I was in the October text. That conversation wasn't finished, but I wasn't able to supply those. And when she would come over to the house, the day that I mentioned in my initial filing about where she was being particularly nasty to me, I wondered why she was, and when I looked down, she had her phone positioned in her pocket in a suspicious way as if I were being recorded, and I sensed that she was trying to get a reaction out of me. And lastly, I want to say this situation is chaotic and messy and heartbreaking, but I did not seek protection against my son, against Kriana, or his father. I have graciously and actively tried to have him see him against all odds, because I don't want to do that to my boy or to him or to her. We have court-appointed mediators that Kriana was going through, but on February 20th, she didn't like the stipulations that her son was under. So that's why she went around and found contact with me. And this was after I had changed my number. where I live, what I drove. I mean, I changed everything about my life because after years of leaving and going back and leaving and going back, I was finally free of this.
Is Miss Mott a party to any of those other orders involving Bodie and all of that? Or is that just between you and Mike?
No, she's not a part
She's
of
not a part
any
of
of
it.
that. No,
Okay. All right.
no, and she was not present at Great Wolf Lodge when the strangulation occurred.
Thank you.
I'm not a part of Mike and hers fight. I wasn't there at Great Wolf Lodge. Sorry, I can't say that correctly. I've never condoned what has happened. I wasn't there. I don't know. They both have different stories. I've always been there to help with, just to help with Bodie. I think they're both irresponsible. Amanda's not telling the truth. I've never threatened her. I've asked to see Bodie numerous times since January and have been told no. I have offered to buy diapers through Jan and Mike Davenport, and they said no. When my Amanda was struggling to stay sober, and we had Bodie, I took him over there to see her twice. We never tried to keep him from her. I even had the Davenports take him there, but they called and immediately had me come back and pick him up because Amanda was not in a good frame of mind. In the texts that I provided, I could have provided you a booklet. I have kept everything since she was 3 months pregnant because of her inconsistency and not being able to stay sober. I have never wished her ill will. I've always forgiven her for sending not nice messages or horrible texts. She sends them to, when she gets drunk, she sends them to my mom, my other siblings, or my other children. And all of that will come out when they go to court because I'm going to have to be one of Mike's witnesses. But their fight is between them, I'm not in it. I'm only there to help with Bodie. I've never reached out and harassed her. She did get a new rig, I heard, but hers was not running. It's not like she's trying to change her whole identity so nobody, like, we're chasing her down or I'm chasing her down. I did stay, when I come there, I've stayed twice with Tacey, her name is, and she did go through her whole surveillance camera. Not one person has been there to try to serve me. I was only there for 4 days, the beginning of March, and I have a silver Charger and she has a silver Honda that sits in her driveway 24/7. She drives a truck to work, so I don't know if they thought that was my car, but I just don't feel like I need a harassment order placed against me. I don't reach out to her, and then when I did, it was to see if her and Bodie needed anything. I've always tried to be there for her as much as I have been with Mike. I've even went to family court with her for her trying to see her other 2 children. I just don't wish her any ill will. My main concern is about Bodie. And I miss him terribly. She doesn't let me, I mean, I went from watching him and having him all the time to not being allowed to see him, or I'm not allowed to have pictures of him anymore. And I do miss the little guy. He's an amazing little boy. And I hope that one day that this will pass and that peace can be restored. But she has nothing to worry about me trying to harass her or track her down. I don't know where she lives. I mean, I know she lives with Debbie, and I like that because Debbie takes good care of Bodie. And when Amanda's drinking, I just feel like she gets wrapped up in her sadness and things that have happened to her in the past. And maybe she doesn't prioritize him when she's hurting. I don't
Thank you.
know what to say.
All right. Ms. Maddox, back to you. You mentioned in your petition, as well as your testimony, that you are not trying to have Bodie be a part of the protection order between you and Ms. Mott. So can you talk to me a little bit about how you would envision that? Like, let's say the court were to enter an order. Would you, how do you envision that going forward? If Ms. Mott's unable to speak with you, are you still comfortable with that happening as far as her seeing Bodie? Or, and I ask because it seems like you've been explicit about wanting to not have Bodie involved in any kind of protection orders. And from a lot of the text messages that both parties have filed, it seems like a lot of the communication does revolve around Bodie. And obviously a lot of emotion around him as well. So how do you envision that working were the court to impose an order?
We would use the court-approved mediators,
Okay.
which is who we've been in communication with. And I did tell them that his size of diapers and everything. So I need help financially until I find work and resourcefully. So I'm not sure where the miscommunication on that part is, but I also told them that I needed a car seat for him, that I needed new shoes for him, that he's outgrowing things. And so I'm not sure where that miscommunication has happened.
All right. And
And
so the
nobody
mediator
knows
is that, what, all right. In one moment, Ms. Mott. So can you talk to me a little bit more about the mediator and what that situation is?
Yeah, so we wanted to keep this out of family court.
When you say this, is it a separation or divorce proceeding between you and Michael?
We're unmarried.
Okay.
So we're unmarried, and I have been through family court. I think it's a beast, and I didn't want to have to do that again for myself or with Michael. I have struggled with sobriety. Being in an abusive relationship made it extremely difficult. Again, seeking therapy and all my healing on these parts. But with his upcoming trial and with the history of them taking, and I do have to say them because she was a part of this, them taking Bodie, whether I was drinking or not drinking, it was a punishment to me. And when all of this happened on January 3rd, I had just done an interview recanting. So it felt like I was doing all of these things to save him, and I was still being punished, and my child was being taken from me. And it's my responsibility that my reaction is to drink. But again, I'm not living in that anymore. That's not my life anymore.
So is it a mediator
sorry.
for? No, it's
I
okay.
deviated.
That's part of my job.
Yes.
So is it a mediator for a parenting plan then?
Essentially, we weren't doing anything through court. I spoke with the prosecutor, and he asked me, he was like, is it okay if these individuals are allowed to talk to you about the child so that information could be conveyed to him, and also then his mother through Michael. And I send pictures. There hasn't been any updates. He does have a doctor's appointment this week. I would have sent an update then. We got it. I had it cleared with the prosecutor and with Michael's attorney that these were safe people to go through, and Kriana had been using them prior to the 20th of February.
Okay. All right. So through Michael's prosecution,
yes,
there are some third parties who've been identified that allow some communication.
Yes, and so that he wouldn't get in trouble.
I see. Okay, got it. Thank you for clarifying that. All right.
And are we talking about the Davenports?
Yes.
Okay, and that's the ones that when we did have Bodie, when you were drinking that, I gave Bodie to them.
So that's an example of, you address the court. All right. So if you want to respond to something, don't say you when you're talking to the other party, talk to me.
Okay. Well, and that was the Davenports are the ones that I have asked if he needs anything, and Jan didn't respond back to me. And then it was like a week later, I got served those papers, and I reached out to her and I said, hey, I'm sorry for asking if Bodie needed anything. I didn't know that I had a harassment order trying to be served on me. And she just, texted me back that the whole situation was just heartbreaking.
And I did inform the Davenports after the filing because I did not want Kriana to unintentionally break it. And so we could also arrange for her to talk to the Davenports about Bodie. But one of the bigger, broader issues here is Kriana constantly inserting herself into this situation where she could easily go through her son, who is allowed to go through the Davenports.
Okay. All right. All right. Thank you. I know, Ms. Maddox, you've been providing some follow-up testimony. It's your petition. It's your burden. So if there's some concluding remarks you'd like to make, now's your time.
Are you speaking to me?
No, I'm sorry. I'll try to speak up. I'm talking to Ms. Maddox.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Spot.
I believe that eventually we can get to a place where there will be peace and reconciliation. For me, it is extremely distressing to hear from Kriana because her history is now backed with her trying to interfere with the justice system. And I'm learning a lot about how abused women behave. And she was just a part of that. She was a part of me lying to get him out of trouble. And the focus is going to all be put on my drinking and not on the violence that I was enduring. It's not appropriate for me to be in communication with her. And the larger threat now that I have is these accusations that are coming out. I'm growing and living my life and trying to heal. And I've now had welfare checks. I've had CPS, I guess it ended up not being, but there's been threats overall. And it affects my well-being, which affects my entire life, my ability to parent. And I thought, I actually had reached out to the prosecutor that it was kind of just like putting the situation on ice. That way there could be no contact from her, pressuring me to cooperate, or because in her earlier messages, so she said he's doing so well and he's wonderful. And it's very raw for me. I'm still trying to move on past this relationship and all the damage. And I understand she's trying to save her son. I sympathize. It's just not appropriate. It's not safe. I am on my own journey now. I think that's it. I know that she cares about her grandson. I do. And I hope we can find a safe way to make that happen. But for me, as the party that was isolated, living with those two and trying to get him out of trouble, it's not safe for me mentally, emotionally. I can't do it.
Thank you, Ms. Maddox. All right. Well, before I make my ruling, I want to thank you both for being here and addressing what is clearly a very difficult situation. Apart from, there's this prosecution happening with Michael, and this is just another court proceeding, and so I realize this is difficult for everybody. I am going to grant the order as requested by Ms. Maddox. The reason being is Ms. Mott, I understand what you've been saying about the reasons for interacting with Ms. Maddox and wanting to focus on Bodie and all of these other things. What I'm looking at in the anti-harassment statute, and I said this earlier this morning too, is when the court is looking at whether certain types of communication meets the definition of unlawful harassment. One of the things that we look at, and this is really what I'm basing my decision on, is whether the respondent's course of conduct has the effect of creating an intimidating, hostile, or offensive living environment for the petitioner. And so, in this case, I think that Ms. Maddox has met her burden in showing that, for whatever reason, underlying the communication from you, I feel that it is having that effect on her. And so for that reason, I am entering an order. It is just, again, between the two of you. It is not involving Bodhi. And what I'm also going to do to just make sure that there's no miscommunication and sort of accidental, unintentional violations, I'm gonna put in the order that there's, I'm going to call it an exception, but hopefully it's just more of a clarification that third-party communications related to, and I'm going to put the cause numbers for the Superior Court cases involving Mike, that's okay. Is that?
Yes.
So that if the mediators in the prosecution case, there may be a situation where Mike wants to talk about Bodhi and Miss Mott, and that involves some communication from her getting to you through a mediator. It sounds like that's not what you're asking to be prohibited, so long as it goes through those mediators. So I'm going to carve that out as well. But other than that, the order will prohibit contact between Miss Mott. Well, it will restrain Miss Mott from contacting Miss Maddox in any other way. It's going to be in place for a year. I understand that is at this point longer than the trials that are scheduled in Mr. Manfield's case. So just be aware that if Mr. Manfield's, if his case resolves in any pretrial mediators or anything to that extent, that kind of goes away with the case. That will have the effect of then taking out that exception, if that makes sense. So right now there's that third-party communication exception related to a prosecution that at this point, if my notes are correct, is scheduled for trial in late May and early June. So whenever that prosecution resolves for those two cases, if it resolves before this order resolves, that exception will go away. Does that make sense, Ms. Mott?
Oh, I have a question. I mean, I want to know, like, how was that going through? I mean, how did I harass her? I don't understand that. I was never a witness to them fighting. I mean, I really don't understand how this is being approved. I've never harassed her. I never witnessed them being violent.
Ms. Mott, I'll answer your question. I want to make sure I'm clear in how I got to my decision. All right. So the basis of the order is are the text messages between the two of you, the two of you being the petitioner, Ms. Maddox, and yourself, and some testimony today on talking about the case. I'm really not talking about communication between, or I'm not looking at communication between the two of you, talking about Bodhi and updates on Bodhi and things like that. There are some text messages that have been uploaded that indicate some discussion about Miss Maddox's relationship with Mr. Mansfield and talking about the outcome of the case. And again, I'm not. This isn't to say that you are having the It is the purpose of your communication to intimidate or do anything of that nature. It is having the effect on Miss Maddox of feeling intimidated with respect to how this case against Mr. Mansfield is going forward. That does meet the definition of unlawful harassment.
But I only got involved when she asked for my help. I mean, that's the only reason, and that's one of the texts is she asked for my help.
Right, and it sounds like this has been a very right. Understood. And communication can change, right? There's a lot of dynamic back and forth that has happened here. And again, as I talked about earlier, one of the ways that we usually look at these things is there persistent communication after being told to stop? That's one way we look at this. Another way we look at this, though, is what is the effect of that communication having on the petitioner? And if it meets that level of creating an intimidating or hostile or effect on the petitioner that's causing substantial emotional distress, then that does meet the definition of unlawful harassment. And based on the text I've seen about the case itself, I understand there's also conversations about help with Bodie. We're not talking about those. We're talking about the conversations with respect to the case against Michael. And based on those and Ms. Maddox's testimony on how that is having an effect on her, I am finding that meets the definition of unlawful harassment.
Well, not to be disrespectful, but I think that's wrong. I just totally think that's wrong. She has asked for my help to try to fix what is going on between them, even though I was not there. She asked me to go to court to help get a judge to sign off on the harassment or protection when it first started. I mean, I will totally abide by whatever you say or that you've granted, but that's not true, and that's not how it happened. I only was there to help, and it was because she's the one who reached out for me to help.
I understand, Ms. Mott, and I understand that you disagree with this. I understand that. The order is going into effect. Again, it will be in effect for a year. Reconciliation happens in the future. We'll see what happens in a year with this order. But for now, again, communication through the mediators, so long as they're in place, is allowable. I am putting that exception in here. But as far as communication directly or any communication between Ms. Maddox, from Ms. Mott to Ms. Maddox, outside of that context is prohibited for the next year.
And there hasn't been any, so that's fine.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Ms. Mott.
This courtroom hearing centers on a deeply emotional dispute between a domestic abuse survivor and her former boyfriend's mother. The petitioner tells the court that she suffered years of physical, emotional, and financial abuse. She argues that even after leaving the relationship, the boyfriend's mother continued contacting her about the ongoing criminal case, making her feel intimidated and unable to move forward. During the hearing, the woman explains that she is focused on rebuilding her life, caring for her young son, and recovering through therapy. She insists that the repeated messages and involvement from her former partner's mother caused her significant emotional distress. On the other side, the boyfriend's mother strongly denies harassing anyone. She tells the judge that her only concern has always been her grandson and that she never intended to threaten or pressure the petitioner. She says she was only trying to help and believes the accusations against her are unfair. After carefully listening to both sides, the judge explains that the legal issue is not whether the messages were meant to be harmful, but whether they had the effect of creating fear, intimidation, or emotional distress. Based on the evidence and testimony presented in court, the judge grants a 1-year anti-harassment protection order. However, the judge also allows one important exception. Communication related to the child may continue through approved third-party mediators, ensuring that necessary information can still be shared without direct contact between the two women. This case serves as a reminder that in harassment cases, a court may focus not only on a person's intentions, but also on the impact their actions have on someone else.